All right. So, welcome one and all to Thursdays on the Stoop. Today we have Breaking for Beauty, Line Breaks, and the Dancing Poem with Sarah Browning. So excited to have her here. Sarah Browning is the author of the poetry collection Killing Summer and Whiskey in the Garden of Eden, co-founder and past executive director of Split This Rock, the poetry and social justice organization. She now teaches with Writers in Progress. Browning received the Lillian E. Smith Award and fellowships from DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities, BCCA, and Yaddo, and Mesa Refuge. She holds an MFA in poetry and creative nonfiction from Rutgers Camden and lives in Philadelphia. You can learn more at sarahbrowning.net. I'm going to paste that link into the box, and I'm going to turn it over to Sarah.
Thank you so much, Jason, and welcome everybody. It's really great to be here with you. We have just 1 hour, so we're going to introduce ourselves quickly, and here's what we're going to do. Name, pronouns, and then favorite or least favorite holiday dish from childhood. And I will start and I will model because I was raised by a terrible cook. So I'm choosing least favorite. And then we'll talk some about why we're here, why think about craft, especially at a time of real war and disaster. But let's introduce ourselves. And Marge says she, her. Am I pronouncing your name right? Marge? Yes, good. Lima beans. Yeah, is that a least favorite, I'm guessing? From the way they were cooked in the past, I bet. Yeah, exactly. So I'm Sarah. My pronouns are she, her. My mother used to use canned yams and baked them with orange juice and margarine and brown sugar. Just about the nastiest thing. And it took me forever to want to eat any kind of sweet potato or anything like that after that. So yeah. Okay, and when I'm gonna call on folks so that we don't get a time delay. So Mona, you're up.
Okay, Mona Mijas. I live in Indiana. Pronouns she, her. I don't eat meat, so my least favorite would be turkey or ham.
Okay, Jane.
Hi there, I'm Jane Moeller, she, her. I think I like the turkey.
All right. Anne.
Hi, I'm Anne, she, her. And I have great memories of Thanksgiving. My grandmother was a great cook. We would have picnics. We lived in California, and she made tamale pie as a side.
Fantastic. Kimberly has posted in the chat, she, her, and her favorite sweet yam pie with marshmallows. So I just got to note that my internet is unstable. So if I start glitching, please raise your hand and tell me. Okay, I mean, wave at me. Okay, Maureen, you're up.
Hi, Maureen, she, her, calling in from Wisconsin. And my least favorite would be Norwegian lutefisk that we have every year. So
yeah,
not a fan. I'm half Norwegian, but not a fan.
Yeah, gotcha. Sarah, you're up.
Okay, hi, Sarah Ray, she, her, coming to you from Chicago. My least favorite would be giblet gravy. I think.
Okay. Amy.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Amy Miller, she, her, hers. I'm in Philly. Favorites, definitely stuffing or dressing for those of you so inclined. Thanks for the opportunity.
Is dressing a Philly term?
I don't know.
No, we use stuff. I'm from Central PA. We definitely say stuffing. I started hearing dressing with in-laws from the South. So
Yeah,
Ah,
it's a southern
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
that's what I
yeah.
thought.
Illinois
Very
and Indiana, I hear both stuffing and dressing. So
oh,
my mother used dressing and she was from southern Indiana, so maybe it is kind of southern.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's
That's
an interesting one.
I love this. Yeah, cool. Great. Naomi.
Hi, Naomi. It's she, her. I'm coming from Philly also, and my favorite would be anything for dessert, anything sweet.
Excellent. Excellent. I also have a wicked sweet tooth. Okay, Fran. Fran, you're up. Did you see what we're doing? We're doing names, pronouns, and favorite or least favorite holiday dish from childhood.
Huh. Oh dear, I don't even know what a favorite holiday dish is.
Well, then you can do least favorite.
Oh, geez. Let me see. I used to like, there wasn't a dessert, but I used to like sweet potato pie.
Excellent.
Sorry, I
Um,
got here late and I'm a little discombobulated.
No worries. And what are your pronouns, Fran?
She
Great,
and her.
great. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Lovely to be here with you on this beautiful day. I was, I was on social media earlier and I saw Anne Boyer's resignation letter as poetry editor of the New York Times Magazine, and she talked about how hard it is to think about poetry at a time of such crisis and war. And I understand that. I also know that many of us are sustained by poetry. And many activists have told me they've been girded for return to the streets or the lobbying or whatever that they do by poems. Which doesn't mean we have to write about whatever crisis there is in the moment. But when it's pounding up inside us, I want us to feel free to write it. And then why think about line breaks? Because we want our poems to be as powerful as they can be, right? And have as much impact as they can. And line breaks are one of the tools in our tool chest for making an effective poem. And so I feel like we, as poets, we are always wanting to work on our craft. And so we're here today, and I'm grateful to you for joining me. I'm gonna share a share screen and kind of go through some thoughts about line breaks that I have borrowed from folks. Jason, can we email this? Can I email this to people afterward? Because it has links and such in it. I forgot to ask you that.
Yeah, I think we've got a list of everyone's email address who registered, or if it's like a online accessible file, you could paste a link, but it sounds like email would be easier.
Okay.
Oh, I
Yeah.
guess maybe there's a
Well,
upload.
I mean, it's a lot of info, it's a lot of quotes and such. So, but we'll figure it out.
Oh, yes, you can add a file to the chat.
Oh, add a file to the chat, and then people could download that at the end. Okay, great. Smart. Okay. Okay, so can you see this now? Great. I can only see some of you. So if you have a question, please just jump in and ask it, okay? And we're gonna do. I'm sorry? Did somebody ask something? No. Okay. So I'm starting with some sort of basic thoughts about the line. That the poem is the sentence, the unit of the sentence in conversation with or in tension with the line. It's kind of the fundamental structure of a poem. And there are two kinds of lines. One is end stopped. And I'm sure for some of you all, this is really basic information, so I apologize, but we'll go through it quickly. Which means that it ends with punctuation or at the end of a phrase. And it implies, this is what I have to say. And we'll look at examples of these kinds of lines. An enjambed line means that it breaks mid-phrase or mid-thought. There's more I have to say. And then I found some good essays on the line. This is a short one at the Poetry Foundation. They have some pretty good short essays, and Rebecca Hazelton is one of their good writers. It's not jargony. It's not, it's very accessible. So the line is a modifier or an amplifier of these other elements of poetry: sense, syntax, sound, and rhythm. And syntax is grammar, right? It's how we structure sentence. So the line is a way to enhance these other elements of poetry. And then Denise Levertov wrote what was a pretty well-known essay, and I found it online in a PDF. It's called On the Function of the Line. And she talks about this William Carlos Williams poem called, it's kind of an unfortunate title, To a Poor Old Woman, about this old woman eating plums. They taste good to her. They taste good to her. They taste good to her. And Levertov said, first, the sentence is made, then the word good is, without the clumsy overemphasis a change of typeface would give, brought to the center of our and her attention for an instant. In other words, by putting it at the end of the line. Then the word taste is given similar momentary prominence, with good sounding on a new note, reaffirmed, so that we have first the general recognition of well-being, then the intensification of that sensation, then its voluptuous location in the sense of taste. And all this is presented through indicated pitches, that is by melody, not by rhythm alone. And then from the book, The Poet's Companion, Kim Adanasio and Dorian Lau says, if you want to make memorable poems, you'll need to get a feel for the line, for what it does when it is very short, very long, and every place in between. You'll need to be able to test its weight and heft according to the rhythms of the language you've strung along it. And you'll want to use it to create tension or relaxation, to emphasize words, to speed up or slow down your reader's eye, to fulfill or thwart expectations. And so now we're going to look at some examples. Does anybody have anything you want to add or questions about these excerpts that I've reviewed so far? And since you'll have this document, you can plunge into them. Okay. So this is a poem by Galway Kinnell, and it's called Wait. Wait for now. Distrust everything if you have to, but trust the hours. Haven't they carried you everywhere up to now? Personal events will become interesting again. Hair will become interesting. pain will become interesting. Buds that open out of season will become interesting. Secondhand gloves will become lovely again. Their memories are what give them the need for other hands. The desolation of lovers is the same, that enormous emptiness carved out of such tiny beings as we are, asks to be filled. The need for the new love is faithfulness to the old. Wait, don't go too early. You're tired, but everyone's tired, but no one is tired enough. Only wait a little and listen. Music of hair, music of pain, music of looms weaving our loves again. Be there to hear it. It will be the only time. Most of all, to hear your whole existence rehearsed by the sorrows play itself into total exhaustion. So obviously this is a poem of mostly end-stopped lines. And it feels to me like the giving of instructions works well with end-stopped lines. I'm going to declare something, and here it is. And here it is again. And so this struck me as something that male poets do a lot. It's making declarations. But I also love this poem, and it's also funny, right? Hair will become interesting again. Even while it's sad too. But then I found this other poem by Joy Harjo, which also has these sort of declarative sentences, lines. Fall song. It is a dark fall day. The earth is slightly damp with rain. I hear a jay. The cry is blue. I have found you in the story again. Is there another word for divine? I need a song that will keep sky open in my mind. If I think behind me, I might break. If I think forward, I lose now. Forever will be a day like this, strung perfectly on the necklace of days, slightly overcast, yellow leaves, your jacket hanging in the hallway next to mine. So they're declarative lines, but they're not instructions the way Galway's poem was instructions. But there's this like variety of line length. And yet each of them is pretty much a kind of plain spoken direct statement. And a lot of Harjo's poems are like that.
Sarah,
Yeah.
if you can reduce your toolbar, we'd be able to see more of the poem. And I forget under view, I think it is.
Oh, okay.
I think it's under view.
Okay, but I can't get there
Okay.
with this screen share thing on top.
Oh yeah. Okay. That's okay. It was just a thought.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But the next poem is shorter and you'll be able to see the whole thing. And this is one that uses enjambed lines really effectively. The Lovers. I was always afraid of the next card the psychic would turn over for us. Forgive me for not knowing how we were every card in the deck. So this poem, he uses line breaks to set up expectations and then mess with them, which is something that you can use it for. although a small caution that it can also be gimmicky. It's not, I don't mean in this poem, but can't remember who it was, but I was reading some quite well-known poet, and the line break then led into death and was set up for something else, and I thought that that was heavy-handed. So or a joke can work well, then you'll see that in a minute. But I love here how forgive me for not knowing how we were. Every card in the deck. So we have two meanings also based on that line break, how we were. Every card in the deck. And, you know, we also want each line to stand on its own or to read, even if mysteriously, on its own. I was always afraid of the next card. The psychic would turn over for us. And then this gap, forgive me. So it slows us down just an extra bit, which in a very short poem like this, I think is wonderful. Okay, and then this is Mary Oliver, who I think does really wonderful things with line breaks. Poem of the One World. This morning, the beautiful white heron was floating along above the water, and then into the sky of this, the one world we all belong to, where everything, sooner or later, is a part of everything else, which thought made me feel, for a little while, quite beautiful myself. Maybe if I stop share for a moment and go to that document, you were saying in the view, I can get rid of the.
I think it's view. It's like remove toolbar or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not seeing it. Ribbon display options. How about full screen mode? Woohoo! Okay. Can you see that now? All right. So it took me several readings of this poem to realize it's one sentence. In fact, she even has a period at the end. You know, the beautiful white heron was floating along above the water and then into the sky of this, the one world we all belong to. So it's set apart, the one world we all belong to. But then we go straight into where everything sooner or later is a part of everything else. So the heron, and then, you know, and then to the self. So the heron is separate, floating along above the water, but then is united with the speaker and meaning, you know, with all of us, the one world. And here's the last sample, and then I'm going to show you two versions of a poem of mine, and then we'll do an exercise. Ode to Friendship. And this is a poem that mixes end stopped and enjambed lines. which is why I brought it. Edgewater Beach, 2019. The night so warm I could fall in love with anything, including myself, my loves. You are the only people I'd surrender my softness to. The moon so blue. And yes, what's gold is gold. What's real is us, despite a country so grieved, so woke, so death. Our gloom as loud as shells. Listen, even the ocean begs. Put your hands in the sand, my friend. It's best we bury ourselves. What's heavy becomes light. So with each of here in the second stanza, each of the lines is end stopped, and we even have an end stop in the middle of the line, in the second to last line, where after kind of establishing the setting in the first stanza of the speaker, surrounded by the friends who support and love them, then these end stopped lines are kind of declarations again of how to be. Put your hands in the sand, my friend. Okay. Any questions or comments, additions?
I have a question. I was curious, I was noticing this first, well, with some of the poems, but the one about the lovers, especially because it's so short, is in addition to line breaks, you also have the stanza break. And it was interesting that, especially with that poem, this sort of hanging also then had a break between the
Right.
penultimate line and the last line. And I mean, that's probably beyond what we're talking about here today, but there's a way that felt very organic, or how those decisions go hand in hand, and how those especially work with enjambment.
Right. Yeah. I know, as I was preparing this, I was realizing, oh, stanzas, that's a whole nother topic that we could do on another day. But of course, they're in conversation with one another, as it were, the line break and the stanza break, and the stanza shape. Stanza break, of course, gives us a longer pause. It can be a longer setup and turn. The shape, it can help shape the poem on the page in very intentional ways, of course. So a regular stanza shape, 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines, is going to make a huge difference. And actually, we'll talk about that a little bit in the poem I'm going to show of mine, because I changed the stanza lengths. But in general, I think 3-line stanzas, which are called tercets, are considered sort of unstable.
Mm.
And then 2-line and 4 lines, especially 4 lines, is solid and sort of formal looking, and sort of harkens to traditional form, even if it's not in form, but it looks like that. And so it has a feeling of stolidity. And then irregular length stanzas are going to do other things, and a single stanza is going to be, I think sometimes narrative poems that tell stories, work well with a one long stanza. And Philip Levine did that a lot. Most of his poems are one long stanza. Because it's telling a story. And it moves the reader along through the story with less emphasis perhaps on image or metaphor. Jane, yeah.
I wondered if you were going to talk about line length and the speed and all, because I really look that up now and then so I don't confuse myself, and I actually see two completely opposing thoughts on that, on the speed.
Right.
Long lines are quick. No, long lines are long. So if you'll speak about that, I appreciate it.
Yeah. I know I've heard debate about that, and you know, does a short line slow you down, or does it speed you up as a reader? And I think it can do either, which is not really helpful, but it can, because and again, it's going to depend on the tension of the line with the image and with the sentence structure, which is the syntax. So if you're having to read through complicated sentence structure or rich imagery, it will slow you down, the shorter line, I think. But let's look at my poem. Oh yeah, Mona.
I have a question about tercets, or you said they're unstable. Does that mean they are? I like writing in tercets. Are they less desirable, like from journals, or what do you mean by unstable?
No, I just mean if the poem is more shaken up, it works well as a form. If it's more if you want the poem to be more, they're not paired, it says Jane, exactly. So actually, let's look at the poem that I revised, because it went from tercets to couplets.
Okay.
And it's called Desire. It's not a love poem. It's like a sex poem or a lust poem. And so I realized, oh, it should be in couplets because there's a you and there's an I. I mean, that's a little on the nose, as it were, but it worked. So what I want to say in preface is that the poem in its final form has been published. It's at Painted Bride Quarterly. The draft, of course, has not. So please don't share it. You're welcome to share the final poem, but you know, it's a draft and an early draft, and I just wouldn't want it out there in the world. Okay. Okay, can you see this? Yes?
Yeah, yes.
Great, thank you. After 30 years, I took your large hand and raised it. Just this, I said, the tip of a finger or two, just to the nail or so, into my mouth, which had dreamed of just that. You made a sound I hoped was a gasp, and I wanted, as I had for 30 years, to do it. Open my mouth and take your two large fingers all the way inside my throat, the size of them filling me. Even now, days later, miles apart, I am hungry for such thick and full in the rental car outside your hotel. I stopped in shame and desire, I blush writing, because you said we would say goodbye inside my rental car, outside your hotel. Goodbye, fingers. Goodbye, hand. So I took this poem to my critique group, my peer group, and my dear friend Venus Thrash, who passed away 2 years ago, quite tragically young, said, Sarah, long lines are sexy. And so I looked at it and I was like, what now? Why is that? Is it a Whitman Ginsburg thing? I don't know. But I changed it. I made the lines longer, and I think it slows the poem down. Mona, it's less maybe choppy is what was happening in the 3-line stanzas with this poem. I'm not saying that's always the case, but let me read it. Desire. I took your large hand and raised it. Okay, so it's 1 line. Just this, I said, the tip of a finger or two, just to the nail or so, into my mouth, which had dreamed of just that. You made a sound I hoped was a gasp, and I wanted, as I had for 30 years, to do it. Open my mouth and take your 2 large fingers all the way inside my throat, the size of them filling me. But I stopped in shame and desire. I blush writing, because you said we would say goodbye inside my rental car, outside your hotel. Even now, days later, miles apart, I am hungry for such thick and full.
Yeah, you're all right. That one does work much better in couplets.
Yeah. And then, the last line, which I may have stuck there at the end just because I ran out of lines, but there it is, the speaker lonely on her own at the end. And so this version is, there's a lot of enjambed lines. So we still have the feeling of anticipatory, desire that doesn't get fulfilled, but with this slower pace, and it also feels more like in the car, the shape of the poem, which is a little weird, but okay. So now we're gonna do an exercise. So, anything else before we do our 5-minute exercise? Okay. So I'm gonna paste in the chat a different Mary Oliver poem, and I've maintained the stanza breaks because, as we said, that's a whole nother conversation. But I made the line, I got rid of the line breaks. So they're prose. And you can cut and paste that into a document and experiment with breaking the lines. And you can just do 1 stanza if you want or whatever, and see what happens when you do it in different places. And we'll do that for about 5 minutes after I get it in there. And then we'll come back and a couple of you will paste your versions in the chat and we'll talk about it. And then I'll show you what she did. And I will I'll also attach that document to the chat after our exercise, so you'll have it. Okay, Any questions? Okay. Oh, and I read some little, the instructions that I just gave you, so. And if you know this poem really well, I apologize. It's not one of her more famous ones, so I hope you don't. But you could see what happens if you know it well. Trying to remember it is. Remember it, that is. Okay. Of course, chat gets rid of stanza breaks. Let's see if that works. Okay, it's called Mornings at Blackwater, which is there, and I put in the instructions. And does that work? Do you see the stanza breaks? Great. Okay. So it's 4:45. So let's goof around for those of us on the East Coast, that is, it's 4:45. Let's goof around for 5 minutes. And we'll come back at 4:50. Okay, and you're welcome to keep your camera on or off, and I'll mute myself. Okay, just take one more minute. Okay. Let's come back. So Mona posted hers. Do you want to read it to us? I see yeah, the stanza breaks didn't come through. That's a messed up thing about trying this process. But do you want to read to us your version, Mona, and then you can tell us two
Yeah.
short things about why you made the choices that you made?
Yeah, let me go to on my page here.
Yep.
Mornings at Blackwater. For years, every morning, I drank from Blackwater Pond. It was flavored with oak leaves and also, no doubt, the feet of ducks. And always it assuaged me from the dry bowl of the very far past. What I want to say is that the past is the past, and the present is what your life is. And you are capable of choosing what that will be, darling citizen. So come to the pond, or the river of your imagination, or the harbor of your longing, and put your lips to the world and live your life. That is supposed to be a standing on its own and live your life. It didn't come out that way.
Ah.
So, yeah.
Okay. So, Mona,
Mhm.
sometimes the line breaks don't work actually in the
Mhm.
chat, but what I want to say is that the past is the past. You had that on one line.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is kind of like what we talked about earlier. Like she's not only declaring, but she says she's declaring.
Yeah, yeah. But she has a comma at the end of it.
Yep. Yeah, which a comma is an end stopped line.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because she follows it with an and.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Anything else about your choices?
I didn't end any line with an and. I started next lines with and. She has quite a few ands.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. One wants to, I mean, generally that's a good idea, not to end a line with an and, but one can do it judiciously. Now, Anne made a very different choice here. Would you like to read this to us, Anne?
Oh, you got the stanzas to show. Okay.
If you hold down Shift and return, it'll put in the space.
Yeah, I don't have. So I realized after because I started playing with it more, and then I said, I've been actually trying to memorize. I memorized some William Carlos Williams poems, and then I was writing them out, and then I said, oh boy, he's influenced me here.
Yeah, I like it. Okay.
Okay, mornings at Blackwater. For years, every morning I drank from Blackwater Pond. It was flavored with oak leaves and also, no doubt, the feet of ducks. And always it assuaged me from the dry bowl of the very far past. What I want to say is that the past is the past, and the present is what your life is, and you are capable of choosing what that will be, darling citizen. So come to the pond or the river of your imagination or the harbor of your longing and put your lips to the world and live your life. My favorite part, I don't think it all works. I mean, I like what she does, but I really loved the third stanza revealing all these ises, like all the to be verbs became the end of it. And
right.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because in some ways it still feels declarative, but it's also a little more, I guess you'd say runic. It feels, like it's having this kind of, that it has kind of incantation as part of that too.
Yeah, so interesting, isn't it? And the different sounds that come out, come, pond, harbor, when you choose different words to end the line. Okay. One more person? Maureen, go for it. Can you?
I'm operating off of an iPhone, so I couldn't send it in to you, but
You're gonna read it to us?
is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. For years, every morning I drank from Blackwater Pond. It was flavored with oak, leaves, and also, no doubt, the feet of ducks. And always it assuaged me from the dry bowl of the very far past. What I want to say is that the past is the past, and the present is what your life is, and you are capable of choosing what will be, darling. Citizen, so come to the pond or the river of your imagination, or the harbor of your, I don't know what of you laying?
Longing.
Of your longing.
Yeah.
And put your lips to the world and live your life.
Ooh.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. See the difference that made? Where I heard it most, the past is the past and the present.
That was great.
Yeah, is what your life is. Right. So meaning can be shifted, can be suggested differently with all these different kinds of line breaks. So let's look at what Mary Oliver did. And then Jason will, and then we'll have final comments. And then Jason will hop back in the last 30 seconds to tell you about upcoming events. And then we'll blow kisses and say goodnight. Oh, and I'll post these to you all so you can download them. Okay. Mornings at Blackwater. For years, every morning I drank from Blackwater Pond. It was flavored with oak leaves and also, no doubt, the feet of ducks. And always it assuaged me from the dry bowl of the very far past. What I want to say is that the past is the past, and the present is what your life is. And you are capable of choosing what that will be, darling citizen. So come to the pond, or the river of your imagination, or the harbor of your longing, and put your lips to the world and live your life. So she's mixed it up with long lines and short lines. You know, this is sort of using humor here, and also, no doubt, the feet of ducks, by putting that alone on the next line. And always it assuaged me. There's a sense of relief in that line for me. And then she did have two is's at the ends of lines. What I want to say is what your life is. So ending with these very short, simple words, mostly. Be, past, is.
Yeah, but it was important that the past is the past was the whole thought.
Right.
That,
Right.
So that meaning came out. It was sort of like, oh, well, that's exactly what she means by this.
Yes.
Yeah, that felt like that.
Right. That's a very direct directive, as it were. So there you have it.
Thank you.
Last comments, anyone? Or question? Okay.
I like that she used a variety of, she used couplets and also the different stanza links in that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's also, I noticed in that earlier Mary Oliver poem that she didn't use punctuation, but there was still like, you know, breaks in the movement of the poem.
Yeah.
So that was that's like a whole nother a whole nother issue too, is whether or not to punctuate.
I don't most of the time.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole nother yeah, we can do a whole nother session on syntax and punctuation. Being a super nerd, I love these things. I'm gonna let Jason take over, and I'm going to hunt down that file so that you can have it. I just posted the poem and the rest of the yeah. And now I'll do the other. Go ahead, go for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, and to everyone who participated in today's session. I just shared a few links in the chat, so you can learn more about Blue Stoop programs, participate in a brief survey about today's session, would be super helpful. I also shared a link to the next Thursday on the Stoop. There won't be one next week, holidays, but the week after that, it will be Autumn Expression with Gabrielle Kaplan-Mayer. I think it's going to be a great session, so be sure to check that out. Sarah's just shared that link in the file rather in the chat, so got everything you need. Thanks for being here. Appreciate your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Great to see familiar faces and folks new to me. I hope we get a chance to write again. On my website at sarahbrowning.net, there are links to the other things I do, including I'm teaching a poetry workshop 8 weeks called Writing Down the Moon. It's all generative, so you'd come out of it with a bunch of first drafts, and it starts up November 29th, and then there's a break for the end of the year, and then again in the new year. So that's through Writers in Progress.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
great
Thank you,
night.
everybody. Take
Thank
care.
you. That was
Goodbye.
great.
Thanks,
Bye.
Sarah.